Stand by, please. Rolling on 6. On 6.
Welcome to episode 324 of the Eat Sleep Right podcast. I'm your host, Adam Scull. The Eat Sleep Right podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at audibletrial.com/Eat Sleep Right. Over 100,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, iPad, Kindle, or MP3 player. The podcast is available on eatsleepright.net as well as the iTunes store where you can also subscribe to it. My goal is to find out how writers become authors, how they got where they are, how they do what they do, and how they go from a blank sheet of paper to a finished manuscript. If you enjoy the Eat Sleep Right podcast and you've had your own adventures in writing, I'd like to hear from you. Tell me about yourself and your story, and then make it back to you and have you as a guest on the Eat Sleep Right podcast. If you have any questions or comments, anything at all, I'd like to hear from you. The email address is comments@eatsleepright.net. James Hill, author of Killer with a Heart, Pegasus, A Journey to New Eden, and your latest book, The Emerald Lady, along with Athena Paris, writer and editor of Love and Madness and Night Kisses, as well as editor of James Hill's book, The Emerald Lady. Welcome to both of you to the Eat Sleep Right podcast. James, it's great having you back once again.
Thank you, Adam. Glad to be back.
Thank you, Adam, for the opportunity.
James, you're a multi-published author, and you've just recently started Rock Hill Publishing, your own publishing firm. How did this all come about?
Basically, I was self-publishing through another company. I was doing most of the work. The only thing they did was the printing. So I figured, why should I go through another company, split my royalties with them, when I could do everything myself? Take over, find my own publisher, my own editors, control the entire process from start to finish.
James, you're based in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and Athena, you're in South Africa, correct?
That's right.
Half a planet away from each other, yet you started this collaboration. How did it all begin?
The way we met was through Amazon. She's a writer. I'm a writer. There was a Facebook post that asked people to trade likes on their Amazon page. It was supposed to boost our ratings. I really didn't think that was such a good idea, but I said, why not? I give it a try. Part of what I did was I read everybody's bio and excerpts from their books before I would like them. I would like them anyway, but I wanted to know who I was liking. When I read Athena's, it really stood out. It really popped. I really liked her bio. I liked what she was writing. She was an epic romance writer. For me, it said something. I'm not really a romance reader, but the way she described herself in her book really spoke to me. I liked what I read about her and about her books so much that I decided that I would text her and speak to her, find out more about her, about what she thought, the way she wrote. We just developed a friendship from there.
Athena, what was your reaction to James's communications with you?
Firstly, I didn't react too negatively because we are writers. And the point of writing is also to get new ideas from other people, because yours is not the only ones that are good. My thoughts were, well, this is great because most of my interactions online are usually female. And a male viewpoint is always welcome because as I write romance, I like to understand the male point of view, not just the female. Because as you know, romance is mostly written for the female readership. So I thought this is great because it can give me a bit of highlights and an input of what a man thinks romance is. I could learn something from him as I write romance, and instead of getting the viewpoint of the female all the time, to rather get the male point of romance.
James, how did you discover that Athena was not only a writer, but an editor?
I talked to Athena. Actually, I asked her to edit. Athena is also a teacher in South Africa, an English teacher. She told me that she enjoyed reading the students' essays and assignments, doing the corrections and helping them out. I told her, that's great. I was in sore need of an editor. I failed English when I was in high school. I passed only by the skin of my teeth, which ain't very thick. I told her if she enjoyed editing, and she does, she spoke to me about what she does as an editor. I told her you should do this professionally. It should be another aspect of your writing. I asked her to edit The Emerald Lady, 1 month, 50,000 words. Told her, of course, I would need to be heavily edited after that, because I'm just what they call word vomit.
Athena, the question begs to be asked, how do you go from editing young adults in a classroom to editing professionally? There's got to be a huge difference.
There is a difference, obviously. The difference is that because I am a writer, I have also been editing my own work, which is rather difficult, obviously. As a writer, you want to leave a lot in. As an editor, you want to cut so much because of what you get from the publishing companies. We want 70,000 words. This must happen. They tell you all these rules and regulations right from the word go when you go onto their sites, what kind of work they will publish. So as a writer, you just want to write and write and write. And as an editor, you have to make everything fit into the parameters that they tell you it must be in. So you have to combine the two, and you basically become two different people.
Making you feel a bit schizophrenic.
Yes, I do many times feel like I've got a split personality, because as a writer I do one thing, and as an editor I'm being extra hard on myself.
Can a writer edit themselves well?
It really depends on the kind of editing you are looking for. If you truly want somebody else's eyes to bring their input into your work, or if you feel, okay, I think maybe I went overboard with my writing, now let me be strict. Stick to the storyline and leave the frills out, so to speak. Leave the frills because the frills are interfering with the actual plot. So in other words, you're basically drawing a story board for yourself, and you say, I have to get from chapter 1 to chapter 20, this has to happen, and in every chapter this is going on. Therefore, whatever falls out of that basic line is not necessary. Deal with it as the writer, because the editor is now speaking.
James, when Athena first started editing your latest book, The Emerald Lady, did you have the courage to say at times, no, this part has to stay in, I want it to stay in?
When I wrote The Emerald Lady, I sent it off to her in its entirety with the idea that I had to add another 20,000 words to it. I wrote 50,000 words to get through the NaNoWrite Mode contest. I sent her the 50,000 words, told her, start working on this. I'm going to start plugging in other pieces. I know I skipped because I didn't have time to write those parts in the time frame of 1 month. That was the process that we took on The Emerald Lady. It worked very well. When she sent it back to me, she said, compare what I did to what you have written. Tell me how you liked it. I noticed where, that looks good. I'm pretty sure I didn't write that. She polished what I said, took some of the things that I said and just tweaked it a little bit. That's what I was looking for in an editor. Not somebody who's going to say slash, cut, and burn, but somebody who's going to say, let's take this, let's shape it up a little bit, let's polish this off a little bit.
Athena, acting as James's editor, were there any parts that he had written where you said, this has to go?
Actually not. Exactly for the reason that he's talking about. The story was actually too short. So there was nothing really to get rid of. There was much to be added to. Just the rewording and polishing. Sometimes on a page, I like to make the page feel original and fresh, and I look for repetitions. So if you are talking about we are falling down, and you keep on saying I am falling down, by the time I get through the 500 words on a page from top to bottom, and I've heard I'm falling down 10 times, that's 9 too many. How do we say falling down in a different way? That is what I do. I go over the repetitions and then I clean it up and say we are falling down, we tripped, we stumbled. All those kinds of things. So you change it so that the page from top to bottom, because our brains pick those things up and then you don't like it. Your brain goes back to repetition. It's not great when you're reading a novel. I actually check for repetition on a page, use pronouns. Instead of saying a person's name, Sam said, Sam turned around, Sam. No, he did this, the door did that, so on. This is what an editor does. The grammar is where editing is based. It's the grammar correcting the spelling. That's basically what editing is. It's grammar and spelling.
Many a defense lawyer has said, I don't have to believe my client, I just have to defend him. Is it the same idea between good writing and bad writing? Can you deal with editing a poorly written novel?
It is preferable to enjoy the work, which is where James scored so highly, because I happen to love The Emerald Lady. Truly. I enjoy that story. I love it deeply. So that was easy for me. My objective was obviously to make it even better than what it was. To just bring the correct grammar and punctuation, all of those things, and make it so much better than what James was creating. Yes, you can edit any work that you do not like. As I was saying, it's all to do with grammar and spelling. You don't have to believe in what you are editing. You just polish the writer's words and say, there is your sentence. That is what you meant to say. There it is. The presentation is there. I don't like it. I don't appreciate it. I don't believe in anything I read in your work. But there is your work. See how you feel about it. And then you get the writer's reaction. Yes, I love what you've done. Or, no, it feels flat. And maybe it could have to do with the editor not believing in the work completely. But you try your best. Because an editor is not perfect either. Makes mistakes as well. But we try our best on the writer's work.
I wanted Athena to edit my work because she didn't know this at the time, but when I started speaking to her and started talking with her, I went out and brought her book, Love and Madness. Now, I started reading, like I said, do not read romances. I'm just not a romance reader. I like a lot of sci-fi. But to get an insight into who she was, I started reading her book. I liked the premise that she put out there, the storyline about it being an epic romance. So I started reading her book. And when I read her book, I said, this is so well written, detailed, so well designed, intricate plot. I said to myself, she will probably do a very good job on my writing. She writes from the same type of view that I have, that things should be complicated in a story. It's not a cut and dry, bam, 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 story over. There has to be twists, there has to be turns, there has to be entertainment in the writing. There has to be entertainment. You have to keep the reader engaged and thinking about the story and what's coming next. She does that with her writing. I recognize that she would be a very good editor for my work because I have that same feeling. I have that same idea about writing, that engagement between reader and writer. They formulate ideas in their heads as they're reading the story, and they want to see how it matches to the story you actually put out. An editor and a writer has to fit together. Attitude, their vision have to mesh if you really want a good outcome.
So, James Hill from Virginia Beach, Virginia, Athena Paris from South Africa. Does the twain meet when it comes to dialect and how words are spoken in two different countries? or is it easy to bridge the gap? Is it universal